Hello and welcome to Turtle WoW News with Vrograg. I'm Vrograg Fishslayer, your reporter orc, here to bring you all the news and happenings here on Turtle WoW for the week of July 11th, 2023. I am broadcasting from Steep Cliff Port because I heard they have a dock where I might catch a boat. So I walked through Silver Pine Forest and hiked up the foothills to Upper Tirisfal Glades, a custom zone here on Turtle WoW. Today, we'll have headline news, market watch, a new segment called Conspiracy Corner, the Changelog Round-up, and our feature piece about a broken gold farm that was remedied, but at what cost? So, let's get right into it. I'm the Orc, and here's the news. Massive news broke yesterday from the itemization team's lead, Dragonovi. Crafted items of all levels are receiving massive overhauls in the stats they provide, coming in 1.16.6, and brand new recipes will be available as well. In a forum post, the designer made them all public to look through, though did offer that they are all subject to change in the future. We would be here all day were I to go through all of it, so I'll try to just give you the big details from this massive post. Just to give you an idea of how big these changes are for crafters of all types, let me hit you with some of the raw numbers of recipes per profession that are being added or adjusted according to the post. Tailoring, 16. Leatherworking, 26. Blacksmithing, 40. Engineering, 6. Enchanting, 10. And that is just the recipes being listed for additions and adjustments. Beyond that, recipes that might stay the same could still have their stats adjusted, or even have new or adjusted set bonuses. While speaking about the announcement alone could take hours, I will highlight a few of the big ones. Leatherworking armor kits will have stamina added to their armor value, and the core leather armor kit will give 5 defense instead of 3. A new armor kit will be available through Karazhan Halls that will give 8 intellect and 6 spell power rather than armor and stamina as most armor kits do. While this was listed as tentative specifically, it seems as if there is a plan in place for blacksmiths to make belt buckles, which will act as a belt enchant of sorts. As of right now, the belt enchantment does seem to be blacksmith only, as applying the enchantment makes the item soulbound. Also of note are changes coming to traditional Raider best-in-slot items. Annihilator will lose its armor debuff stacking with Fairy Fire. Titanic Leggings and Lionheart Helm has had their stats adjusted. The Bloodvine set received a makeover, and the Feral Druid DPS best-in-slot Wolf's Head Helm no longer gives energy when shapeshifting. I foresee some huge shakeups in the market with shifting values of certain crafting materials and changing priorities on professions. So, take time to review the proposed changes for yourself. I'll make sure to leave a link for them in the description. I would advise to anyone doing so to try to have constructive conversations with those involved, but if you ultimately don't like something, you can always just say, "Thanks, Dragonovi." Our second top story involves the 2 warring factions of Centaurs in Desolus, who received a flurry of changes this last changelog. Most players coming from Vanilla or Classic might think of the Gelkis and Magrum Centaur clan reputations as little more than an unfinished mess from the early days of Vanilla development. Here in Turtle WoW, however, the reputations had some big changes implemented months ago, including repeatable reputation quests and even exclusive reputation reward vendors. Of note are 2 of the best wrist enchants in the game, one for agility and one for spell power. As often happens with many new additions onto old content on the server, there were bugs and glitches that needed attending to, though much of the content did work as intended right out of the box. However, last week's changelog on July 4th had 4 distinct changes directed at fixing the lingering reputation gain problems to gain favor with one's preferred clan of hooved barbarians. The Gelkis Rumbler will now give Magrum reputation for each kill. The Centaurs outside of Maradon will now give 5 reputation for both faction. though the Bracer Turn-In quest from killing those centaurs will give less reputation to offset the new gains obtained from killing them. And, finally, the repeatable quests for either of the clans will no longer give experience points. Happy hunting to all involved, from the hardcore characters hoping to get a purple weapon while they level up, to the servers enchanters seeking to prove to everyone they are actually committed to the craft. That does it for breaking stories. Now, let's go over to Market Watch. Welcome to Market Watch. In light of the recent announcement about crafting changes coming soon, I'd like to issue the first ever Market Watch volatility alert, because in the coming future, the market is liable to swing all over the place. Make sure you check the market for yourself before making any investments, because it looks like a wild ride coming this next week. Now let's take a look at the market as a whole with the S&P 6. Last week, the index ended trading at 1715, but rose a modest 1% to 1738. A sign of a good healthy market with reasonable prices overall and little gold inflation. Now to the stocks that make up the S&P 6. Black Lotus seems to have avoided the price spikes it had issues with 2 weeks ago, and continues to hover around its normal mid-18 gold price mark overall. Over the last 2 weeks, Cured Rugged Hide has shown a very slight decrease in value, but continues the downward trend for the leatherworking good. Grom's Blood had some wild swings on the 4th, but otherwise remained steadily around its normal price margin, which historically are returning to the levels they were seen back in May. Arcane Crystals really started moving recently, increasing 38% from 16 gold to 22 gold in that time. This is a pretty big departure from its historical norms, and in the coming week I'd expect a real wild ride if I were interested in this stock. Mooncloth showed some volatility as of recent times, though finished the 2-week period about even. Now that the early speculation bubble has gone, it has returned to its historical prices, but with more known about the crafted Mooncloth sets, I'd be wary of another rally on this tailoring good. Large Brilliant Shards slowly decreased in value these last 2 weeks from 5 gold to about 475, which means as more and more enchanters find reliable blues to farm shards with, they are going to keep decreasing in value. Our newest followed stock, but not part of the S&P 6 yet, the Stone Scale Eel remained flat overall, but does show some wild swings up and down of about 50%, demonstrating just how cutthroat the fish market can truly be. That concludes Market Watch for now. Stay tuned for next week, where my pathetic spreadsheet breaks from all the bonkers market stuff that's about to happen. Stay informed and invest well. Let's go back to Vrograg with a new special segment called Conspiracy Corner. With 1.16.6 right around the corner, I am bombarded with rumors and conspiracies about all kinds of things that may or may not come to fruition with the next patch. In fact, I received so many of them from our beloved community manager Acalix, I felt I should share some of them with you, for a good laugh, or maybe there is something to it. To most, Misty Pine Refuge is just part of the Dunmoreau region, so imagine my surprise when I get dropped this little picture of what seems to be an aquatic dwarf in some kind of giant watery hall. I'm not sure what to make of it. My best guess is that it is somehow related to the rumored dwarven instances coming beyond 1.16.6, or might be part of a guild base that is yet to be finished. Then there was this little gem. How the Sims Online and Turtle WoW intersect, I don't think I can fully ever understand, but I'm putting this one much closer in my mind to the Acalix is just gaslighting me pile than anything else. But sometimes letting Acalix sit on a joke can turn into something more. Seems like the fabled broken black morass dungeon in Caverns of Time might just open up, and with some new bosses, but who can say? This is just Conspiracy Corner. Let me leave you with the most tantalizing little thing that Acalix teased me with most recently. More legendaries. Sure, the obvious choice would be Ashbringer, but could it be something else? I have no idea, and neither do you, but that won't stop the Turtle WoW team from wearing down the remaining bits of my sanity as I rack my brain to try and figure it out. Well, at least now I don't have to ponder these things all alone, because now you can think about them too, and go on your own wild goose chases. For now though, that's all the conspiracies I have to share, so let's get back to some real news with the Changelog Round-up. The changelog of July 4th had 40 points on it, and some of them will impact everyday adventurers of Azeroth, so let's get to them quick with lightning mode news. A quick follow-up to last week's big announcement surrounding the Blasted Land buff items and Zanzas. In the July 4th changelog, it was noted that the Gizzard Gum and Cerebral Cortex compound truly had their 5 unique tag removed. And, in a move to make the hoarding-prone raiders happy, all Blasted Land buff items and Zanzas can now stack to 20. Still no sign of more mob spawns to enable better catch rates of the materials required for Blasted Land buffs, but at least raiders won't have to sacrifice 4 bag slots for 20 of a single buff item. Bold adventurers seeking to make short work of Baron Rivendare may find that a previously cheesy strategy may no longer work. Previously, it was possible to pull the Deadly Horseman out of his chambers and fight him in an area where the AoE shadow damage would not affect the party and his skeletal minions wouldn't attack. The recent changelog put an end to this method and will require actual design mechanics to finish him off. Good luck on getting the charger. Though the Fire Festival's nearly at an end, those that were able to get the Cinder Bracers that summon a Fire Elemental Guardian pet for a time were happy to see our fiery little friend will be able to stay with us for much longer than expected. Normally, Cinder Bracers have only 3 uses before vanishing, but now, like other Guardian pet summoning items, it will now have unlimited uses. I'm sure that little extra bit of warmth will be welcome during the months of Winter Veil. The much memed upon trinket known as the Shard of the Falling Star recently got a big buff. This trash drop from AQ40 used to just do a flat amount of damage and was of little use to most people in PvP or PvE outside of a neat parlor trick since its damage was underwhelming. However, thanks to the recent changelog, this actual debris from outer space will also have the character's spell power taken into consideration when being used. Fire mages, now is your chance to turn some heads in the battlegrounds. For some time, the spooky gargoyle enemies in Naxxramas had a peculiar bug. They just kind of faced wherever they wanted. Tanks couldn't face them the right way, and backstabbing rogues would just have to figure out where their real back was. Since these monsters are posed as a kind of DPS check, if they're not killed quickly enough, they manage to heal themselves up to full. It was a welcome fix in the changelog that now their facing will actually represent their real front and back. Melee DPS rejoice, you don't have to wait for a parry notification to figure out the front from the back. And remember to eat after the pull, those poison stacks hurt. A long-awaited change finally came to the Priests of Azeroth. Though it was promised ever since class changes, Priests' Holy Fire and Holy Nova spells were not using the coefficient that was promised to them during class changes. For all spells, the Under the Hood coefficient is a number that provides a certain contribution of a caster's spell power from their gear as additional damage on their spells. 100 extra spell power doesn't mean each spell does 100 extra damage. It is based on the coefficient, the intricacies of which I don't have time to get into, but consider it big news for all the priests who like doing caster damage, but not necessarily as a shadow priest. Smite priests of Turtle WoW, now is your time, but make sure to group up with a paladin that gives sanctity aura to really pump, and maybe bring some extra mana potions. Balake was active again on the GitHub, and this time to remedy the underwhelming reputation given off mob kills in the Ruins of Anchorage, better known as AQ20. According to his research, which last news broadcast revealed as quite extensive, showed that early on in the private server community, the reputation gains in AQ20 were more or less guesswork than certainty. Turtle WoW was using the values from before the classic era, and since much of the classic era is an accurate snapshot of 1.12 vanilla, he noted that the reputation gained from killing monsters in the temple was considerably lower. This is still lightning news, so I won't do a laundry list of changes, but as of July 4th, all mobs in the 20-man raid should have adjusted reputation gains. Fear not, up-and-coming melee DPS, Earthstrike isn't so far away after all. And to finish off the Changelog Roundup, we have something a little less competitive than the raiding environment, but perhaps just as difficult: getting Shadowforged torches in the Lyceum of Blackrock Depths. Adventurers need to navigate around to find the dwarf in red armor known as the Shadowforged Flamekeeper to get the torch that drops off of him, to then light the braziers, to then move on. So it came as some surprise to GitHub contributor Quackman Dan when they realized that the drop rate was 80%, after having killed all available Flamekeepers and from some bad luck couldn't continue until all Flamekeepers respawned, which took 15 minutes. They offered two solutions: either make the torch have a 100% drop rate, or speed up the spawn timer on the Flamekeepers. It looks like the developers went with the prior suggestion rather than the latter, and now adventurers can manage the Lyceum event in Blackrock Depths with a little bit more confidence than before. That concludes the Changelog Roundup from the July 4th Changelog. Now, let's go take a look at our feature piece involving something not many people know about: rogue tanking. Some of the more astute readers of the Changelog probably noticed something a little odd. This one line about rogues no longer being able to solo raid bosses. For most traditional players, the notion of a rogue soloing a raid boss might cause more confusion than anything else on the Changelog, or just be brushed off as some kind of exploit someone was doing. For our feature story, I'll have to disclose some things to all of you, since I, as an ethical journalist, would be negligent if I didn't tell you about my personal stake in the feature story. See, when I'm not reporting the news for all of you, I also do a little bit of rogue tanking myself. So while I haven't been personally affected by the changes, I was very concerned, perhaps more so than I normally would be. So if you'll indulge me, I'll likely inject more of my opinion into the story than I normally would, though I will try to stick to the facts. With that out of the way, I can confirm that yes, indeed, rogue tanking is a thing, and one that is utilized in special niche cases and sometimes for lower level raids. With class changes, rogues received a finisher called Flourish that gives 20% parry, and a poison that helps build threat called Agitating Poison. Since rogues can get 2% dodge with just 29 agility, were a rogue to get sufficiently buffed and have the right gear set up, they could be unhittable to physical attacks. Gaining the unhittable threshold is even used in some raid groups as a way to bypass the healing needed on select bosses. However, this doesn't mean rogue tanks can just waltz through every raid. They still have terrible threat comparatively. They have no taunt, and no mitigation at all for spell damage. So in the current Turtle WoW meta, they are more of a special use case than anything else, and sometimes used in solo content to make killing elites a little bit more manageable. It would seem, however, that some rogues have taken this on as a challenge to see what levels of tanking they might be able to achieve as a means to make some coin, which, as it turns out, was why this note was in the changelog at all. I naturally took right to the Discord, worried that the little community of rogue tanks on the server were getting unnecessarily targeted. Plus, the phrasing of the changelog was rather odd. Nearly any raid boss would require accomplices for a rogue. Things like Agility Totem from Shamans were vital, as well as the Blessing of Kings from a Paladin, since world buffs were off the table to reach the quote-unquote unhittable status. The first person from Turtle WoW team to respond was Quest, who admitted that the patch notes worded it very poorly, indicating that it was indeed for small groups, not truly solo rogue tanks. It still felt unwarranted since a small group with a well-geared warrior or a bear tank and a healer could also clear lower level bosses. Why pick on the rogues who barely have a presence on the server as it is? Akalix was able to give some more details and drop this bomb on me. 3,000 gold an hour. That amount was absolutely preposterous, and to this date I have not been able to confirm it. This brings me to a point of frustration in this little investigation. When the Turtle WoW team sees what they believe to be an exploit, their ability to explain things more thoroughly evaporates. Which is all well and good since exploits are against terms of service and the team doesn't want to encourage others to replicate them. Personally, it was still frustrating, seeing the emergent playstyle get disavowed from challenging themselves to try to do difficult things like take on raid bosses in small groups. I mean, it was just a week ago that Torta was celebrating the challenge taken on by 20 paladins to clear all of Molten Core. Why were rogue tanks so different? In my back and forth with Acalix, I finally got the answer I was seeking. Rogue tanks are odd ducks. A weird problem gets a weird fix. And this was the only way of fixing the problem without removing rogue tanking completely. I may never learn which rogue pushed the envelope far enough to warrant the nerf, bug fix, however you look at it. But the rogue tanking saga isn't over on Turtle WoW. Just last week I enjoyed having a rogue tank be a Hateful Strike Soaker on Patchwork and tank Vesuvius for my Naxxramas run. Everything worked without a hitch. Long before class changes, I dreamed of tanking as a rogue, and I remain proud of what I've been able to accomplish thus far. I understand the Turtle WoW team's awkward position in all this, and I hold out hope for a brighter future for rogue tanks. Ultimately, Turtle WoW is a living community. There are always going to be winners and losers as this version of the game develops. What matters most is that you can play, have fun, and make some friends. And this story reminded me of all of that. I'm just a rogue who enjoys playing the game unusually, even if it gets written off as a meme. So, don't let your memes stay dreams, because dreams never die. I hope you enjoyed the feature piece, even if it drifted into editorial. I will always try to bring you the truth, but sometimes it's my own truth I need to share. Thank you for indulging me. However, that does wrap up the news for today. In parting, I have some things to share before we end the broadcast. First, the long-awaited drawing for the 200 turtle coins did happen a few weeks ago, but I have not been able to get in touch with the winner nor the runner-up. If your YouTube comment name is AussiePalHeathen or Canal of Endable, please reach out to me so I can facilitate getting you those turtle coins, or at least let me know to look for another winner if you happen not to play on the server. Second point is that I have been asked in private channels if there's any way people can donate for the time being to the news broadcast, since YouTube is moving at glacial speed towards monetizing. Please don't feel it necessary to do so, but if you like the programming and want to chip in, so I can justify the hours I put into these shows, I'll leave a link for donations in the comment section below. And last point of order is that the last 2 weeks I have been streaming so that I can do some Q&A with the community and maybe do a little fishing. The streams have been laid back and pretty fun, so if that's something that interests you, then keep an eye out for when I schedule streams on the channel, or check out previous streams in the live tab of the channel. I try to do them every Saturday. As always, you can reach me in-game through whispers or in-game mail. I love reading and responding to comments left below the videos as well. If you ever need to drop any hot news tips on the down low, or need to contact me in an official way, you can also reach me at vrogragfishslayer@gmail.com. Please make sure to like and subscribe so I know you all appreciate the broadcasts I do. For now though, I need to figure out exactly when this boat is coming because I have not seen one this entire time. Wish me luck. I pray the same for you on all of your journeys. And remember, the deadliest weapon is knowledge.